When a franchise of any kind does a reboot or a retcon, whether it's softly or just straight on, you're always going to have people questioning whether or not it was the right move to make. You know, one of the most talked about soft retcons and soft reboots that was done over the past year or so was in the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book by Archie Comics. Basically, a little over a year ago, basically about a year now when you think about it, the official soft retcon soft reboot of the comic came to be. Now, the difference with this soft retcon and reboot was it wasn't initially, the start of a whole new era. It wasn't like they were going to issue out an all new number one issue of Sonic the Hedgehog. No, it was basically a soft retcon and soft reboot that continued the comic in the direction that it went in. It continued the comic basically within sort of the same continuity. Well, basically it's the same continuity, but it's new. And another way it was softly retconned and rebooted is you had the characters getting redesigned as well, and the backgrounds and origins getting rebooted and softly retconned and rebooted as well. But everything stayed within the same kind of continuity and connected the continuity of the new portion of it to the original portion to kind of give fans the idea that this is the same characters as before. Yes, they got new designs, they got new looks. Yes, the origins have changed, but a lot of what's happening, still connects to the original continuity and universe. Which is why Archie Comics didn't decide, hey, let's just do a whole new number one issue. No, they said 252 is just going to be, part of the same run. Nothing, we're not going to do a Marvel or DC move. We're not just going to, start things over. We're just going to say, boom, let's continue it from here and go from there. Or continue it from there and continue it here and go from there. That was the decision they made, and yeah, it was mixed with a lot of reaction. There's some people that still don't like it. Some people that felt it shouldn't have been done. That even if, you had these lawsuits and stuff behind the scenes, that you should have at least said, you know what, screw that. If you're like the head writer or the head people in charge, you should have been like, screw that. We're going to do our own thing and basically continue on with what you originally planned to do. But unfortunately, the lawsuit behind the scenes proved to be a little too much, I guess, and they just had to go in the direction they needed to go in. The only silver lining, like I said, is the continuity may be new because it's a new timeline, but it's part of the original continuity of the original timeline. So that's sort of the silver lining in between. And then sometimes you get reboots to characters within the same franchise, but these are reboots that take place in another continuity, another portion of the franchise, another division of the franchise. And that's where something like Sonic Boom comes in. It's basically rebooting the characters, but it's rebooting the characters in a different way. It's rebooting them to where this reboot of Sonic will have nothing to do with the current run of Sonic in the games or in the comics. It'll have nothing to do with that. It'll be its own thing. So, there's that kind of a reboot if you want to look at it. But then you get to actual reboots, if you will, or retcons, and then you take a look at what Marvel has done over the years. You take a look at what DC did. And sometimes a a reboot, a retcon, is met with mixed reaction. Sometimes it's met with positive reaction. Sometimes it's met with negative reaction. And again, like I said, most of the times it's met with mixed reaction. It really is. I mean, Louis Lumberg, known as Linkara, I think said it best when he said that there were some titles that DC Comics did. I think he said this, that DC Comics did in their new 52 line, which Archie Comics, well, not Archie Comic fans, but Sonic fans have adapted as NU as opposed to new, the word new. They just put NU 52 for what they refer to as the new Sonic, it basically is a way of referring to the new soft retcon and soft reboot of the Sonic comic. But basically, like I was saying, Linkara pointed out basically that there were some titles that were part of DC Comics' new 52 line that did not go over well with anybody. They didn't. Nobody liked them. Nobody cared for them. Nobody wanted them. And then you got some of the decisions that were made as far as, starting, titles like Superman over for the new 52 and Batman well, Batman, that's another thing too, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, they started Batman over, but then I think this question is, though, if Batman got started over, then why are some issues continuing on from the original run? Or why is some references to the original run of the series being referenced in a new 52 version? Things like that. And then again, you got the start over, the reboot of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the Justice League, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, you name it. Whoever else, Zatanna you can think of, Vixen, if you will. All these different DC characters, Batgirl, Harley Quinn, Catwoman, and that was one thing that I think it was Bob Shorrox actually pointed out in a review he did for a new 52 comic book special, based around Valentine's. He was wondering, why is she referencing, or why is DC Comics referencing things from Batman's original run when this is all part of New 52? It didn't make any sense. So, anyway, like I was saying, you had all these new start overs. All the comics were basically getting started over with all new, fresh #1 issues and continuing on. All part of the New 52 line. And again, some of that was met with positive reaction. Like I said, with some titles met with negative reaction. And some were mixed. And then some of the decisions that get made were mixed as well. Like, instead of being Superman and Lois Lane as a couple, you have Superman and Wonder Woman, which kind of leaves Lois Lane open. It's like, where does she fit in all this? You got all these different decisions, right? You kind of change up Harley Quinn's background a little bit. You change up her design, just like like I mentioned with Sonic, what they did with the soft retcon and soft reboot there with some of the characters, the SatAM characters, that is. DC Comics did that before Archie Comics. DC basically redesigned, remodified a lot of the outfits that the characters had, so that they would, basically they would represent what the New 52 was going to be about. So, represent that this was a new line, this was a new era, and stuff like that. So, you have these kind of decisions. Like you have like new romantic love interests and stuff. You have new origin backgrounds and things, and like I said, either it's mixed, either it's received well with, and either it's met with a mixed reaction, positive or negative. They still go with it. Sometimes they might change it if it's a really massive negative reaction, and sometimes they'll just keep it. Like if it's just a small negative reaction, the people are like, fans will get over it. It's no big deal. Fans will get over it. And then, of course, you got Marvel, and they did their thing with the Marvel Now and stuff like that. They did their thing, if you will. for certain titles, and if not most of their titles. They did certain things there for most of them, if not some of their titles. Spider-Man, probably the most controversial story that nobody likes. In fact, Lewis Lumberg, has yet to do a video on it. And if he has, boys, it probably got the most views ever, because here's a storyline in Spider-Man that nobody likes. Basically, in Spider-Man, I don't know who it was, Joe Quesada or something, I don't know. They came up with the idea to have basically Mary Jane make a deal. Not just Mary Jane, but both Mary Jane and Peter make a deal with, what's his name again? I can't think of it. Can't think of it right now. Basically make a deal with the devil, if you will. And I know somebody's going to correct me in the comics and say it's this guy's name, and I just can't think of it right off the top of my head. I know it starts with an M. But anyway, like I said, that situation there, which was entitled One More Day, got the ire of a lot of fans, because basically what Joe Quesada did and what Marvel allowed him to do was basically erase probably the most popular romantic couple in the history of comics, the most dynamic romantic couple in the history of comics, and say, you know what? Marriage never happened. They never met. Peter's on his own again. He's back in college or something or whatever. Basically, with that one story, they rebooted and retconned, not softly, but directly rebooted and retconned the entire Spidey universe. They did. And again, not a lot of people were happy about that. And again, they've done some other things with some of the other titles as well. And all part of this new Marvel Now run, or, this Marvel Now run, if you will, or campaign, or whatever you want to call it. They did that. And again, One More Day's situation was met with mostly negative reaction, and it was just not a good decision in the eyes of a lot of fans. And I'm guessing that maybe you're going to try to retcon that or rectify that down the line. Well, it's been a few years now. I think they need to start rectifying it real soon. Because I can't remember. I know it's been a few years, maybe more than that, but they need to start rectifying that, if not already, and get that straightened out. But, it's things like that, it's reboots like that always question why a reboot, always have people questioning, no matter what the media is, why do you need to reboot the series? Why can't you just, continue it in some form or fashion? Why do you have to reboot it? Why do we even have to tweak it a little bit and keep it within continuity? If all why do that? Why can't you just try to keep things the way they are and then try to add in something that kind of is similar to what you're doing, or you're currently doing? That's what makes people wonder. And then, of course, you got shows as well, like with Scooby-Doo, for example. I was just watching a little bit of Mystery Incorporated. I know that sounds a little crazy to some fans of my channel, but yeah, I was watching Mystery Incorporated, and I'll tell you this, out of all the interpretations that Scooby's gone through, and I've mentioned this many times on camera, on video, as well as through audio and stuff like that, and even Dragon Natural Speaker, I've basically said that Mystery Incorporated is probably the darkest they've ever done a Scooby-Doo series. Probably the darkest. 13 Ghosts could be right behind it. Alright? But when you take a look at 13 Ghosts, and you compare it to Mystery Incorporated, I hate to say it, makes 13 Ghosts look like a downright TVY show, if you know what I mean. Not a TVY7, but TVY. And, you take a look at, how the whole Scooby-Doo run, if you will. None of the shows up to Mystery Incorporated were ever that dark. The movies, that was a different story at times. They were dark. But as far as the series goes, none of them came to this level. Where Are You, Scooby-Doo never did, or Scooby-Doo, Where Are You never did, The Scooby-Doo movies never did. The Scooby-Doo show never did. Scooby-Doo and Scrappy never did. The all new Scooby-Doo and Scrappy show never did. The new Scooby-Doo Mysteries never did. 13 Ghosts, yeah, it got dark, but not to this level. And Pup Named Scooby-Doo never did. What's New Scooby-Doo definitely was kind of in between, but never really did. Scooby and Shaggy Get a Clue, I have no idea. But none of them ever got this dark arc, when it came to a Scooby-Doo show. And this was all part of, again, another retcon reboot of a franchise. Basically, that's what Mystery Incorporated was. It was a retcon and a reboot of the franchise. But what the ironic twist was, what the ironic twist of it all was, it was also the final episode, and I'm not trying to give much away for those that haven't seen it yet. The final episode basically serves the ending. Basically, the ending of the final episode serves as retcon and reboot of the entire franchise in the eyes of many fans. Because you have to watch Mystery Incorporated, but basically the show begins sort of like a reboot and retcon of how everything of the kids in high school, the different twists and all that, and things and all that and everything. And then, like I say, the twist at the very end of the series is saying, oh, by the way, this whole series was basically the setup to the original run. And it's like, okay, what sense does that make? So basically that's what it was. It was just basically say this whole series was not just a reboot and a retcon of the franchise, but it was also basically a prelude to the original run. And again, these are the kind of decisions that are either met with positive reaction, negative reaction, or mixed reaction. And in a way, the show basically was met with a mixed reaction. Yeah, a lot of people thought it was good, but there was some that thought it was bad. And then, of course, you take a look at the ending, and that's kind of met with a mixed reaction. It's almost like a what? Why did they do that for? And only if one, I didn't really watch the series that much, I'll be honest with you, but now that I'm trying to catch up, thanks to Netflix, and of course, hopefully thanks to DVD Fab, I can try to get the other 2 volumes to complete the series. Basically, the show, basically what it was is everything they went through, that once the ending occurred for the entire series, everything they went through just never really happened. Everything that took place, and was referenced during the show, ceased to be. And it just was a start over again. And that start over leads you into what Scooby-Doo, where are you? And it's like, what sense does that really make, And that's why it was kind of met with mixed reaction, because they're thinking, wait a minute. How does that make sense since, I don't know, they're going to encounter basically a lot of the villains that they referenced that they had already captured in this series. How does that make sense since they're going to encounter them again? What's going to happen? Are they going to forget over time? Are the memories of the original Crystal Cove or the original timeline going to fade away throughout time? Throughout the whole mystery solving adventure trips, that every mystery they did in Crystal Cove, everything they've encountered in Crystal Cove is just going to fade away, and it's going to be basically the minds are going to be rebooted. It's like that's why people look at that kind of stuff and go like, really? They look at that kind of stuff along with the reboot of the show and stuff like that, and they're like, really? The show was all right, but really you're going to end it like that? Because basically this is how you're rebooting the franchise by basically saying this entire show was nothing more than a prelude? Are you serious? It just didn't make sense to them. It didn't. And you take a look at franchises like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Every incarnation has had it. Every time they've been rebooted, they've always had a different take on how they've met April. How they've beaten the Shredder. How the series ends. All that. How they've met Casey. It's all been a different take. Now, some might say that the only reason they can get away with it because of what was pretty much established in the Turtles Forever movie in 2009, as well as what was kind of established with that one episode. I think was it Wormquake or something? Or no, it wasn't Wormquake. It was something else, where they saw basically the 1980s Turtles. So basically, fans will say, "Oh, well, Mirage and Nickelodeon can get away with that kind of stuff because these are just different dimensions," and that might be true, but still, it's always a different take. Like, the original comics, had a different take on how they met April and Casey. The cartoon had a different take on how they met April and Casey. The 80s cartoon, that is, because they met them individually. The 2003 series had a different take, more closer to the Mirage Studio. Take of how they met April and Casey. And now the 2012 to present series has their own take of how they met April and Casey, basically indicating that they've grown. In this version, they're growing up with April and Casey, because April and Casey, when they meet them, they're in high school. So that's basically another take. That's basically saying, hey, this is another reboot, retcon of the series, of the Ninja Turtle series. And oh, by the way, this time when they meet April and Casey, they're going to be teenagers themselves, and they're going to be in high school. And some fans are like, oh, okay, that's fine, that's cool. They're meeting April and Casey, that's cool, that's fine, whatever. But then there are some changes that some fans don't like, or some added additions, changes they don't like. Like, now all of a sudden, there are some fans that are mixed on the whole, of the creators going like, oh, let's also add in this new element. Let's add in Donatello crushing on April. And let's kind of have her know that, kind of indicate that, kind of hint around that she probably knows that. Let's go in that direction. And then, oh, by the way, later down the line, let's create a love triangle. It's like, seriously? You're going to add that as part of it? And there's a lot of longtime fans, and even some of the newer fans that do research, that when they look up the history of the Turtles, they're like, never once has that ever happened, so why are you doing it here? And there are some fans that will defend it, and maybe say, well, they want to make it more realistic. Why not? Just saying. And again, it's these kind of things that when it comes to reboots and retcons, that, basically overall they get mixed reactions. Even when movies are remade, they get a mixed reaction. Seriously. When movies are remade, they get a mixed reaction. Amazing Spider-Man. When it first came out, it got a great positive reaction and somewhat of a mixed reaction and a little bit of a negative reaction because it was a different take of the Spider-Man origin on film. But the reason it got a positive reaction is Mark Webb was going in the direction of the comics, in a sense. He was basically saying, okay, let's have Peter meet and fall in love with Gwen Stacy first instead of Mary Jane. There you go. Stuff like that. And then, let's make one of his first villains he faces, appropriately, let's make that villain the Lizard. There you go. And the reason that got a positive reaction is because everybody's saying, okay, this director's going in the right direction with the Spider-Man mythos. Of course, the second one got a mixed reaction because maybe it was one too many villains, death of Gwen Stacy. Well, I hope I'm not probably giving much away with that because I'm pretty much sure a lot of people know that by now. What's going to happen, especially if you see the trailers, even before the movie came out. So, but anyway, like I said, reboots in movies and stuff, we'll get either negative or positive reactions, and sometimes a mixed reaction. The new Turtles movie is another reboot retcon of the franchise, and it's gotten a positive reaction. It's got somewhat of a negative reaction because of some of the things that were added in and changed a bit. It got a bit of a mixed to negative reaction with those, but positive reaction overall because, it's just the Turtle story all over again, just different. Just a different take on it, you know? And don't get me started on the various Transformers retcons and reboots when it comes to movies and cartoons. I mean, we could go on forever with those. The point is, and I know it sounds like I'm rambling on, but the point is, it seems that it doesn't matter what kind of a franchise it is in the media. Doesn't matter if it's a show, doesn't matter if it's a cartoon show, a live action show, it doesn't matter if it's an animated or live action movie, a mixture of both. It doesn't matter if it's a comic book or a novel, video game series, doesn't matter. Basically, overall, retcons and reboots are always going to be met with overall reactions. That's it. Overall mixed reactions. That's all they're going to be. And it's either going to be negative, positive, or a combination of both. So, that's just my take on, the whole reboot retcon deal. So, let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. And I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.